This is it. I was expecting the show to improve this season, but now it's officially surpassed my expectations. I mean this from an adaptation and a standalone perspective. You see, one of the great appeals that adaptations like this show, The Wheel of Time, and even Shadowhunters have for me is seeing how they adapt the story they are based on. Sometimes my enjoyment of that aspect eclipses my enjoyment of the show itself. All of those shows I mentioned have lesser episodes with this issue, even a whole season and a half in the case of Shadowhunters, but that's a video for another day. There was a bit of that feeling in the first season of Percy Jackson, especially when the characters figured things out way too fast or really weird decisions were made. Not so this season. All 3 of the episodes we have gotten thus far have kept me engaged the entire time. Thankfully not so much that I couldn't take notes. So, let's get started. And keep in mind, there will be minor book spoilers. We're starting off with Clarisse this time, and the Oracle gives her a prophecy similar to the prophecy from Season 1. That she will sail with warriors of bone, and she will succeed in getting what she is searching for, but will ultimately still fail. Cryptic and vague as prophecies tend to be. Checking back in with Percy and co., they have boarded the ship, but they realize something is off. Now that he knows about Annabeth being privy to the Great Prophecy, Percy decides that he is okay with not knowing, at least right now. And then Tyson smells monsters on board the ship, which turns out to be the Lastrygonians that attacked camp. Moving back to Clarisse, the first part of her prophecy comes true pretty quickly. Ares shows up and Clarisse bows to him, which he doesn't like. The god of war respects a warrior's pride, which is consistent with his portrayal in the books. So he introduces Clarisse to the ship Ironclad and an undead army to crew it, who come from many places, in times unlike in the book, where they were all Confederate soldiers. Probably for the best. And we even get a Blockbuster employee, because they lost the streaming war with Netflix. Nice update. But before he goes, Ares threatens Clarisse with what he will do if she fails. He did do this in the book as well, but that scene took place later on and Percy was listening in. The book was told in first person, so being able to show Ares threatening his daughter without Percy present is a unique strength the show has over the book it's based on. However, that does introduce a problem since Percy knowing about the threat affected his decision regarding what to do with the Golden Fleece at the end of the story. There are still ways they could make it work, but we'll just have to wait until next episode to find out. At this point, Percy and friends have noticed the Lastrygonians being hidden by the mist, and then Percy and Annabeth run into Allison Sims, a character made for the show who is a daughter of Apollo that graduated from camp. This is a big change from the book, but not necessarily world-breaking. When most demigods discover what they are, monsters start to come for them more and more, and as such, they tend not to make it past their teen years, at least at the beginning of the series. But it's not necessarily impossible, and some demigods throughout history have made it to adulthood. Then Percy remembers her name from his dreams, with Grover, and she attacks them in quite the tussle even for Annabeth and Percy, before Percy tricks her off the edge of the boat. They take her card, which Percy recognizes Kronos' scythe symbol on, and right after they see an ad for the ship meant for mythical creatures, and the flag on the ship has the same scythe symbol as the card, making it clear just how much support Kronos has already gained. Moving back to Clarisse, we see that she is having some trouble with her undead crew. She tries threatening them, but is unable to get their attention. Tyson asks about the Titans, and Percy tells him the story of the gods rebelling against Kronos after he ate them and threw them up. I'm not a fan of the fact that Percy left out the details of Kronos eating his children because of a prophecy that stated they would overthrow him someday. That was an important part of the story because that is one of many myths which demonstrates one meeting their destiny on the very road they take to avoid it. But that's a minor detail. Percy, knowing Luke is on the ship, wants to kill him to end the war swiftly, but Annabeth disagrees and she even uses the code word boon, which they agreed signals that Percy is going to create a bad outcome as per the Great Prophecy. Annabeth acknowledges that what Luke is doing is wrong, since it hurt her to see him poison Thalia's tree, but she also says that Luke has a good reason to hate the gods. He's just going about it in completely the wrong way. Percy, of course, is skeptical, but he agrees to a compromise, capturing Luke. They try to catch him in a cart, and listen in on his conversation with the recovered Allison Sims via Tyson's superior hearing. But Luke figures out they're there and captures them. Tyson is let off, and Luke shows Percy and Annabeth Kronos' sarcophagus, telling them that every half-blood who joins them makes Kronos stronger. good attention to detail, and it acknowledges the way gods and titans work in this universe. They are made stronger by worship. No matter how powerful they are, the Half-Bloods have the deciding vote. Luke also knows about the Great Prophecy, and he thinks Thalia would side with him, since she was turned into a tree instead of being saved. Luke then shows Annabeth and Percy his little operation, including Tyson, who is crafting some kind of machine. He's accepted there and isn't considered a monster, which is in direct contrast to how Camp perceived him when he showed up. And apparently Luke and his followers don't use that term. Apparently all of them are children of the gods, and they aren't accepted at camp because they aren't also the children of mortals. Which kind of works as a tie-in to what the Court of the Dead was all about. But are the mythics here just following orders like the book implies? Are they committed to the cause of their own free will, since Kronos is giving them a better offer than the gods? I'm not sure. Then Luke emphasizes how much of a swing in power it would be if Percy were to side with them because he's a child of the Big Three. He even uses the "end the war tonight" line that Percy said earlier when he was talking about killing Luke. This of course implies that Luke knows what the Great Prophecy says about a child of the Big Three being the deciding factor in the fate of Olympus. And finally, I love the way they escape. Tyson proved harder to win over than Luke anticipated, and he made a bomb to hold off Luke and his minions just long enough for the trio to escape. And just like in the book, as soon as they reach the lifeboats, they use the wind thermos from Hermes to escape the ship faster than Luke can catch up to them. Getting back to Clarice, she finally figures out a way to motivate her crew and earn their loyalty. She knows that all of them lost wars, so she frames the quest as a second chance to prove themselves, and then they can throw it in the face of anyone who doubted them. Positive reinforcement. Nice contrast to how Ares motivated them, and it plays into Clarice's leadership potential, which is an important character trait she has in the books. This also gets one of the officers to tell Clarice that the coordinates she was given are way off, and she realizes she needs Percy or Annabeth to tell her the real coordinates. Back to the trio, Annabeth reveals that she doesn't know the exact words to the prophecy, but she does tell Percy why Luke was so concerned about gaining the loyalty of a child of the Big Three. That being, one of them will be the deciding factor in the fate of Olympus. In the words of H. Bomber Guy, foreshadowing is a literary device, and Percy immediately says he wishes he didn't know. In the books, Percy does know about his potential role in the Great Prophecy, even if he doesn't know the exact words. And it's very important since it affects his decisions later in the series, before he even learns the whole thing. With the way the show has set up the importance of the Great Prophecy, this does work as a way to inform the show-only audience about what it could mean, while working with the character arcs they have set up for Percy and Annabeth this season. In the preview for next episode, we see the fight between Percy and Clarice that was shown in the trailers for Season 2, along with what I think is a flashback about Thalia, and scenes with Scylla and Charybdis. But with the current context established, it looks like Clarice is going to fight Percy for the coordinates, and somehow it ends with them accompanying her. Though I should also mention that the Hydra is in the end credits. Were the Hydra and Monster Donut Shop not cut? It was a pretty small and even forgettable encounter in the book, despite being the namesake of a podcast I like. So I assumed it would be cut from the show, but I'm not so sure now, especially if they do dispose of it as quickly as they did in the book to get on with the fight between Percy and Clarice. Final thoughts. This was another great episode. While I'm still unsure about a few things, I think the show is in a really good position. For the most part, they've figured out how to portray the story threads they are adapting, and what choices to make in order to bring it to fruition. So for now, the future of the show looks bright, even considering what little we have seen of Season 3, and it's making me even more excited. I'm Kylan Mythos, and I'll see you all next time.